Hi everyone, welcome to Conscious Conversations with Ascending Tribe. I'm Alex, creator of Ascending Tribe, and you can join our weekly group chats online by sending us an email. We have such an amazing guest on today who has a wealth of knowledge and wisdom. Introducing Chris Storey from Primal Alchemy. Thank you, Chris, for joining us.
Yo,
How are
thanks
you?
for having me on, Alex. I'm good. We've been discussing this chat for quite some time, and the stars have aligned, and here I am, and here you are. So it should be good. This is cool. I've been ready to drop some bombs, some knowledge bombs, and help spread the word to the Ascending Tribe. And looking forward to whatever topics we cover today.
Amazing. I can't wait to hear everything you're going to tell us. Can you actually start by giving us more information about your background? Tell us more about Primal Alchemy and how you've come to where you are today.
For sure. So I'll make this brief, and then I can expand on certain points, and then try and make it much more digestible and understandable from where I'm coming from. Because it's quite a long story with loads of different points in my life that were critical, sort of, you could say, like, points of awakening on different levels. So I guess to start off as a young kid, very inquisitive, very curious about the world, and I was obsessed with like mythology. I was obsessed with superheroes, with comic books and pop culture. And as every young boy is, really, and as I grew up, I never really grew out of it. I kind of I was always I guess you'd say I was obsessed with just superheroes, like becoming a superhuman. I was convinced that there must be more to reality than in life than what was generally being fed to me, or through my friends and family's opinions on life, which I come from a working class background. I'm not from a special bloodline. I'm not from any sort of special star lineage or anything like that. I'm just a normal guy. I grew up in a rough bit of Bristol here in the UK, and growing up, I was always fixated on these topics, and that led me to go down a few rabbit holes from a young age. By the age of like 14 and 15, I was reading pretty complex, esoteric, occult literature. I was reading a lot of Madame Helena Blavatsky's work. I was reading a lot of Rudolf Steiner's work. I was reading a lot of work from the work of Hermes Trismegistus, which is something that we can discuss later on. And that got me real interested in sort of mystery schools, secret societies. So I reached out to my local Freemasonic lodge at 15, and they were like, "Who the fuck is this kid? Like, who are you? How'd you even know about us?" Like, this was back about 10 years ago, and the information that's available now wasn't as readily available back then, and they just couldn't get their mind over the fact, like, who the fuck is this kid? And I kept pestering them and bugging them, and they were like, "Look, kid, like, you're way too young. Like, just come back to us in a few years, and we'll see what's going to happen from there." So, anyway, I went off to college. I studied sort of like sports coaching, exercise physiology. Became a qualified personal trainer at the age of 16. Got really into sort of like peak state human performance sciences. From there, I went off to university and studied sport and exercise science, and I was a nutritionist for a Commonwealth Games athlete. I've trained professional athletes all through my university career, through specific sport internships. And then it was while I was at university that I got initiated into Freemasonry finally. So at the age of 18, I got initiated. They finally let me in. Within a year or two, I'd already gone through what we call the blue collar lodge degrees, which are your first 3 degrees. So you end up becoming a master mason at the end of it.
I never knew this about you. You're a Freemason.
Oh no, it's an insider.
Legit, my first interview with a Freemason.
Yeah, that's it. I'm gonna press the button now, Alex, and you're gonna get sniped off. That's
oh,
it.
God.
So anyway, I did that. Followed that for another year or two. By the end of my university career, so when you're 21, I held a rank within Freemasonry where I was the youngest in the world to hold that rank. It's called a Mark Master Mason degree. It's not really that important, but that's just what I was at the time, and that was the kind of, I was the youngest in the world to hold that degree. So anyway, after that, when I was like, what do I want to do in life?
Can I just quickly ask, are you known globally with other Freemasons then, because of that title?
Not really. I can explain Freemasonry in a little bit more detail later on in regards.
Yeah, because there's a lot of like negative connotations held to Freemasonry, so it'd be good to go into that.
Yeah, sweet. We can touch on that as well. And then so after university, I went off and worked on a cruise ship as a personal trainer. So I did that for about 2 years. I traveled the world and used that time to really go deep into my own sort of studies of myself and the world in general. I got first-hand experience on many different cultures, philosophies on health, nutrition, spirituality, their sort of ancestral traditions. And I was piecing together in my mind, along with all of the occult esoteric stuff that I was really interested in, sort of a grand picture of reality in my own sort of perennial philosophy on what life is and why we're here. After I was finished with the ships, I was again at another crossroads of what to do. And just on the last few days of my contract on the ship, I was in New Orleans, United States, and I went to a psychic, and the psychic basically was telling me how he was fully booked and he couldn't do anything with me. So I was like, shit, well, I would really like it because I'm a psychic in New Orleans. It seems like the thing to do. It's the home of voodoo with Mary LeBeau and all of that shit. So I was really interested. And anyway, very synchronistically, he as I was leaving, someone rang up, and it was someone who was cancelling their booking, and he had a free space. Well, there we go. So I had a talk with him, and he told me that I was going to go to Nepal, which is actually what I was going to go to Nepal. I was going to go there to work as a physiotherapist.
Were you already thinking to go there before he said that?
Yeah, so I was going to go there to do a physiotherapy internship so I could go back to university to do my master's and a PhD afterwards. And but I was a little bit, so I was questioning that decision if it was worth it or not. But anyway, he told me that I was going to go there, and I was like, fuck, well, he just pulled that country out of the hat. He could have said anything. So I was like, all right, well, listen to what he's got to say. And he goes, you're going to go there, but what you're going to get out of it is not what you think you're going to get out of it. It's going to be a completely different shift and change of direction in your life. But you will find your destiny there. So I was like, fuck, this is like a Doctor Strange movie. This is exactly what this is exactly up my street, up my alley. I'm down for this. So anyway, a few months later, I find myself on the plane to Kathmandu. And yeah, I touch down and I do my 8 weeks of residency at Chitwan Medical College as a physiotherapist. And near the end, I was like, man, this physiotherapist game is shit, man. It's boring. I'm destined for more than this. Like, I don't just want to sit here and do this general physiotherapy work, which I thought I wanted to do, but it turns out I didn't. So I went off into the Himalayas, up into the Annapurna mountain region, and went out there for 2 weeks on a hike. And when I was out there, this is a night I kind of changed it all. I was sat outside of this little tea hut. Somewhere outside of a place called Pecora. And yeah, basically what happened then is that I had an out-of-body experience where I was shown my destiny, I was shown my future, and basically I was kind of told by my higher self or whatever it was that I was communicating with that I was here for a reason, to be like an agent of a mass awakening. So to be able to be someone that would wake the planet up. And that everything that I had done up to this point was for a reason. There was a reason why I was obsessed with superheroes. There's a reason why I got into the esoteric occult stuff at a young age. There was a reason why I got real deep into the physical aspects of being human, with personal training, peak state performance, nutrition. All of that was for a reason. It was to bring forth a new sort of modern day mystery school, a new modern day initiation into the mysteries of human potential. And literally within a few seconds, all of this information come to me that I was going to create my own brand. It was going to be called Primal Alchemy, and that I was then going to commit the rest of my life to getting this information out there. And that is pretty much what I've been doing for the past 4 years, has been working in order to create this Primal Alchemy brand, which, just to give you a bit of information on it, is, again, this sounds funny, but it really is the case. It's the best way to explain it, is the world's only superhuman optimization brand. And what we do at Primal Alchemy is we unify that ancient ancestral wisdom that I took a lot of my younger years studying with 21st century peak state science, peak state performance science. And then we create a line of lifestyle products, premium lifestyle products, to optimize one's physical, mental, spiritual capabilities. So we have our own line of health supplements, we have our own clothing line, we have our own biohacking store. So these are like biohacking health technologies. I have my own podcast, which I know you're familiar with, the Red Pill Initiation Hour. And yeah, just going to be starting up a new video documentary series on YouTube very soon. So that is a very brief but maybe over explained descriptor of myself and Primal Alchemy, Alex. But if you've got any more questions regarding that or specific points, I can also go in on that.
I can really relate on the superheroes, by the way. I was always really obsessed with superheroes, anything to do with superheroes, Marvel, when I was growing up, because I always kind of felt like, well, how did someone just create this in their mind? Like, there must be some truth to it. And I always this is what got me into like truth seeking as well with myself, is that I always kind of felt like there's no smoke without fire. Like even dragons, I used to think like, dragons, who thought up dragons? Like, they must have existed, because who would just think up a creature called a dragon and looks how it looks? But yeah, even when I was younger, I used to try telekinesis. I was so convinced I could move a coin and stuff. But yeah, no, it never really worked. But I'll still practice anyway.
No, there's a reason for it, Alex. There's a reason why as kids we're drawn to that sort of stuff. It's because when we're kids, we're much more open to these other realities. Like we're
less indoctrinated at that time.
Yeah, less conditioned, less programmed. And then over time, our malleable brains begin to get controlled and begin to get swayed into certain directions and certain sets of beliefs, and then we lose touch with that other side of ourselves, and before you know it, you're working 9 to 5 at some bullshit office job thinking that reality is that. And it's sad that we've been led astray, because life is much more mystical and magical than we could ever believe, and we're soon, very soon in fact, going to begin to start to wake up to that. And it's going to be, just as it was in ancient times, it's going to be accepted fact that there are other worlds other than ours, both physical and non-physical, that we can interact with. And yeah, I'm really excited and optimistic for the future in regards to bringing back these ancient sort of traditional beliefs and esoteric wisdom teachings to everyone that's living now in the 21st century.
Yeah, amazing. Which leads me to my next question, actually. I really just want to jump in and delve deep into ancient civilizations, because I know you know quite a bit about that, and we've spoken about it before as well. Yeah. It can be very confusing, especially like for me, I still get quite confused about it. But basically, there's so many parts to it. But can you tell us what you know about Atlantis, Lumeria, and then leading on to like the Sumerian race? Because I know that you were saying earlier, Lumeria came before Atlantis, but Atlantis is always really spoken about more often than Lumeria.
Yeah, so they kind of, these lands, these civilizations, they all existed together, but over a very long span width of time, like much more than we could begin to comprehend. We're talking time spans of millions of years. And
it was Earth.
Yeah, so it's all on Earth. Atlantis. There's many places that have been hypothesized and theorized to have been Atlantis. You've got somewhere in the Gobi Desert. You've got places in the middle of the Atlantic. You've got down in Antarctica. The Lumeria is perceived to be over in the Pacific, which used to connect to Indonesia essentially. But the time zones that we're working with here, It's kind of debatable when there's no sort of solid evidence on how long they were around for. Some occult literature says millions of years, some say a few hundred thousands of years, and some tie it to the precessional clock, which I want to explain before I talk about Atlantis and Lumeria and everything with the civilizations that arose afterwards. So there is people that are listening, you may or may not be familiar with the human body in regards to our circadian clock. So our circadian clock is what essentially regulates our sleep-wake cycle, an on and off switch, as to say daytime when it's sunny, or I should say just when daytime is our wake, nighttime is our sleep. And so this is where the ancient saying of as above so below comes from, is that everything is a scale model of itself. So if we scale that up into the earth itself, the earth has a sleep-wake cycle, and that is the 4 seasons. You have spring and summer, which is essentially wake, and you have autumn and winter, which is asleep. So that is a year-long cycle. So we have the human body, which is a day cycle. We have the earth, which is a year cycle, and then we go up again, and we scale that up to what's known as the precessional age, or what Plato called the Great Year. And what this is a 25,920 year cycle. So if we were just to round that up to 26,000 years, so 13,000 years on and off. And what this on and off signifies is the level of consciousness on the planet. So when you would say it's on, we would be whatever is living on the planet would be connected to source, would be connected to the planet, and would be very spiritually connected in nature. And when it's off, we will become very materialistic and disconnected from source, disconnected from nature. That is the way that the cycle goes. And when we begin to look at that precessional clock in more detail, what we see is that at specific points within that cycle, within that 26,000 year cycle, there are civilizations that rise and fall in according to where they are on that sort of galactic sort of consciousness seasonal clock. And we can go into a little bit more detail, Alex. You have to kind of guide me on a few specifics, but the Atlantis and Lumeria story came to an end at around about, let's just say, 13,000 years ago. It was about 12,000 years ago, 11,000 BC. What happened, or what is believed to be happened, what is hypothesized, is that it's known as the Younger Dryas meteorite impact theory, and it's that a meteorite hit the North American ice caps at this time period, and once it hit the ice caps, it essentially created or initiated a global flood. And that global flood is what wiped out the last golden age civilization, or the last stage of it anyway. It probably wasn't that golden anyway. So if
is this what's known as Noah's flood?
Yeah, so Noah's flood, they talk about it in the Sumerian text as well, within the Epic of Gilgamesh. You've got there's hundreds, in fact, if not thousands, of different ancestral mythologies that discuss a global flood. And beforehand, like back in like the 18th, 19th century, when scientific thought was beginning to kind of like take control over the more religious views of the time, the flood was discredited because it was so closely linked and intrinsically linked to Christianity, and that was something that we were trying to get away from. So everyone just thought that the flood was just a myth. It was just some bullshit that people decided to write on some papyrus scrolls just to have a laugh. But it turns out that this flood really did happen, and there's a lot of proof that it happened. And this wiped out this advanced, or the end stage of this advanced civilization. And then over the next few thousand years, there wasn't too much action going on planet Earth. It was almost like what we
rebuilding. It's like a reset, isn't it?
Yeah, it was pretty much what we would perceive to be the Stone Age. Because what happened is you could think once that meteorite impact hit, that signified the beginning of autumn. That was essentially autumn on the Great Clock. So things began to fall into the great winter, the great
So it is
spiritual.
natural that at the end of the golden age, there's always a cataclysm that happens, isn't there?
There's normally a cataclysm at the end of every age. So if, in regards to that clock, that 25,920 year clock, if you were to break that down into 12 segments, so the way that we can read this clock, like we would read a clock on the wall or a wristwatch, is that the earth is tilted on its axis slightly and it wobbles on it, much like if you had like a, don't know if you ever knew Beyblades back in the day, or like spinning tops, that when they come to the end of their spin, they begin to wobble. And the earth wobbles on its axis to the point where its north star, its pole star, points at different stars within different constellations. And through this, to do a whole 360 degree turn, that's the great year. But if you were to break that down into 12, there's 12 sections or 12 periods of time that span 2,160 years apiece, and they become known as a zodiac age, or a specific age on this planet. And that is when we look at the equinoxes and solstices, the sun rises within a certain house. So for the past 2,160 years, we have been in the age of Pisces, in that when the sun would rise on the equinox, it would be in alignment with the constellation of Pisces.
Yeah.
That's why Christianity, like within the Roman Catholic Church, and there's a lot of fish symbolism. That's why the Pope wears a hat that looks like a fish tail. It's all to do with Pisces. There's a lot of interest in like analogies and symbolism used within these religions, these Abrahamic religions, these monotheistic religions that rose to power within that last age. So
I just want to quickly touch on, like when the cataclysms happen from a spiritual level, isn't this like the harvesting of souls so that they can ascend to their next evolution? Or is that just, I'm currently reading a book.
I would say that that's happened many, many times in many periods on this planet, but that specific time of that meteorite impact was really us going into a spiritual sleep, a 12,000 year spiritual sleep.
Okay.
And so for the next few ages, we pretty much were in the Stone Age, and then at around 5,000 years, 6,000 years BC, there seemed to be, according to all these mythologies and oral traditions, what these ancient cultures referred to as the seven sages, or these seven wise men. And they can be seen in Sumerian texts, they can be seen in Mesoamerican texts, they can be seen in Vedic texts. All around the ancient world, there's stories of these seven men, which they referred to, the seven sages, or the shining ones, that came and taught these civilizations, or these what is believed to be what they reseeded civilization. It's almost like civilization needed a reboot, and that we were ready for the next stage, the next operating system of the human experience here on the planet. And that's when we see the rise of the likes of ancient Egypt, ancient Sumeria. That's when we see the Vedic valleys begin to flourish. It's not a coincidence that all of these civilizations and cultures from the get-go had their high sciences right from point zero. They had their mathematics, they had their astrology, they had their philosophies, they had their health sciences. Everything just had their agricultural sciences. All of a sudden, just bam, they just had it. It wasn't something like a linear progression where they just grouped together and they worked it out as they went along. They literally had it from the get-go, and then we find that over time they began to forget, and then these high civilizations began to fall, just like we had ancient Egypt when ancient Egypt fell. And we see that as a consistent theme throughout the ancient world. So it's almost as if they were taught by some higher intelligence, but then forgot as generations passed. What's anything else do you want me to touch?
So just with Sumeria, Sumeria is a place that happened after the cataclysm that took place on Atlantis, right? So Atlantis was there, the cataclysm happened, and then Sumeria was born?
No, so Atlantis was, think of Atlantis more as just a name of a race of like, just, it wasn't so much, it was just a place. There were places within Atlantis. It was believed
Sumerian
that
were a group of people then?
so Sumerians were a civilization that rose within the Middle East with what was known as Mesopotamia around 5,000 years ago, or 5,000 BC. It's the numbers get a little bit murky when you get that far back, because you're talking about large spans of time here. So the Sumerians, yeah, they played their part in the advancement of human civilization. Like if you were to date back, Sumerians, again, their ancient religion was Zoroastrianism, which was believed to be one of the first sort of major religions, or you would call like post-flood religions.
And they were spiritually evolved already.
They were spiritually evolved. Yeah, they were more spiritually evolved than we are now, because if you think about it, they, on the clock, if you were to think of where we were, if we were descending, then they were around this time, but we're down here at this time. So it was devolving, but anyone up here is going to be much more spiritually evolved than the people down here. So where we sit on this clock now is exactly parallel to where the comet hit. So that was the end of the last ice age. You could say that was the beginning of the Great Sleep. And as we hit 6, it actually goes anti-clockwise, but just to show you here, we're essentially at the point now where we are entering spring on this great clock. This is where the whole idea of the age of Aquarius is coming from, where the great awakening is coming from, because it is the awakening of the planet, it is the awakening of the consciousness on the planet, due to this the way that the precessional ages work. And just to add a little bit more detail on that in regards to why is it an on and off switch, it's to do with the way that when the Earth is facing certain constellations, we are interacting with greater energy levels from the galactic center, which gives us what's known as the photonic band. And this photonic band is essentially a beam of energy. It's a beam of light particles, and light particles are energy, or I should say information. Scientists know that you can store infinite amounts of information in light particles and photons.
It's why if you sun gaze, it gives you a lot of information. You get a lot of wisdom come through when you're sun gazing.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it is. So if the Earth is pointing towards a certain direction where we're receiving more light, then obviously the age of light is quite a it explains it pretty well, that we're going to be receiving more information. If we're receiving more information, then we're going to be able to lower the levels of entropy on the planet and in our own mind, in the human constitution, and we're going to become much more awakened to truth, because we've got much more information to be able to deal with. It's the Masonic saying of order out of chaos.
Yeah. So I need to just quickly ask, for those that aren't obviously aware, how do you explain who and what we are?
Who and what we are. So this is something that, this is my own personal theory on this. This is something that if you guys resonate with what I'm about to say, then you can check out my brand in a little bit more detail, because this is the central underpinning theme of my brand.
I'll have everything in the description anyway at the bottom.
Is that we are what I believe to be living in a spiritual MMORPG. So what I mean by that is, for any geeks out there that know what I mean by MMORPG, is a massively online multiplayer role-playing game, role-playing experience. And this is where my interests in simulation theory and all of these alternative theories of reality and physics come into play. That essentially we are spirit, we are God, we are consciousness that is experiencing itself in what we could look at in today's terms as a spiritual virtual reality. So this isn't a new concept. This is something that's been discussed through loads of different ancient cultures. The Vedic Valley, they called this the Maya, which they called the illusion, that this was a world that was illusionary in nature. The ancient forms of Christianity, within Gnostic Christianity, they referred to it as the pleroma. Again, there was this world behind the veil of ours that was the true source of consciousness and what real reality actually is. We look at it today, and we look at films like The Matrix. Similar, there's a good film, Ready Player One, all films with these subtle predictive programming in that is kind of alluring us to the truth, and that is that our spirit is kind of wearing this visor that puts it into a spiritual virtual reality, and then our consciousness is tuned into an avatar vessel, and this is our human body. And it is our goal, in order to complete this game, that we have to spiritually evolve, and we have to learn lessons that life gives us in order to become the best version of ourselves, to learn our lessons on this planet so that we can evolve into higher spiritual realms and have different experiences. And that is an eternal quest of self-discovery and self-actualization. And this is something that, again, it sounds very kind of like fantasy based, but the more you get into this, you realize that reality really is fantasy. Like, there's a reason why the human mind resonates with fantasy and sci-fi films. It's because we're almost like we're remembering something. We're remembering something, and it's us kind of playing that out in this experience. Your experience is Alex. I'm experiencing this as Chris. In my game, I'm player one. In your game, you're player one. In my game, you're an NPC. You're a non-playable character. In your game, I'm an NPC. I'm a non-playable character, but you interact with me. We could go on side quests together. We can earn XP together. And when you earn XP, you level up. When you level up, you get better attribute points. You get to max out your physical attribute points, which means you get to be able to experience the game world in a much more beneficial and funner way, because your body's able to do more. If you've got more mental points, you can intellectualize more and you can learn things faster. If you've got more spiritual mana points, then you're connected to the spiritual world and you can learn magic. You can learn how to manipulate the 3D world around you, just like you can do in any RPG game. So all of these things that we see, that we create for ourselves to experience in this world, spirit source consciousness is already created that in regards to us experiencing it. So it's that fractal representation, again, that scale model of just continuously creating the same system for us to experience and learn new lessons through. Does that make sense?
It makes so much sense. Yeah, no, I did a little bit of research into simulation theory a few years ago. When I first came across it, it really blew my mind, Chris. Like, I don't want to say it put me in fear, but like, it blew my mind to the point where I was just like, whoa, okay, this is a whole new concept. This is a whole new perspective for me. But once you come to accept it, I mean, I usually see this as a school. I usually say, like, we're in like secondary school trying to graduate to university or something, or to college. But it's funny that when you're saying that, and it's making me think, like, when you see that from that perspective, you're able to do certain things that maybe you weren't necessarily able to do before. You weren't able to even imagine things that you couldn't imagine before. Do you know what I mean? It's just mad when you change your perception around what this really is, or come to accept what this really is. You know, it depends how you're looking at it.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of evidence to suggest it. There's a lot of interesting science out there for people to go and research further in regards to simulation theory. There's some real smart minds, like brilliant maverick thought leaders within sort of theoretical physics, and
that ties into the unified field theory as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, so you've got Nassim Haramein. He's got some real interesting things to say. He doesn't necessarily say it's a simulation, but again, it all ties in. You've got his work. You can look into the Thunderbolts project, which is all to do with the electric universe, about electricity being the core sort of source power of the world. Again, it's like a video game. There's a lot of holographic universe, almost as if like this is being rendered on a Blu-ray disc, holographic in nature. There's just a lot of information out there, and regarding if people want to believe it or not, the fact is, if you believe in it, you are the star in your own film, then you're gonna live the life of a film, and you're gonna live a life of a game, and that's gonna, if that's more fulfilling for you, then at the end of the day, that's what it's about. If you got to empower yourself in any way that you can, and if that means that you believe that, and that you believe that certain philosophy, and that allows you to empower yourself in this life, then if it's real or not is actually irrelevant. What it's the effect that it's having on you, and the way that you live your life, and the way that you interact with others, how loving you are, how open you are, it's that the point of it being factual or not is irrelevant. It's the effect that it has on you and how you project yourself into your reality that counts.
And belief forms your reality as well. That's the other thing as well. So it's not necessarily to say that what you're saying everyone should believe, or that it's right for everyone, because I always say, like, your spiritual journey is always individual to yourself as well, but it's the same principle that I feel belief does form your reality. And I've experienced that myself. I came from a very, very like negative outlook on life. And as I've started to like rewire my brain, I'm changing my perception, I'm, you know, opening, I'm expanding my mind, my reality is changing in ways that I never thought could be possible, you know. So
I mean, it will do. It's you're upgrading your hardware so that you can download the latest software. It's the same with any computer or anything. If you're running on some old ass fucking PC from running Windows 98 that's got limited RAM, it's got a shitty processor, you're not going to be able to process the information, the shit ton of information that you need to be able to process to be able to connect at that sort of level of awareness and that level of consciousness. So if you work on your body, if you clean your body out, if your body's clean, if your mind's clean, you got to create that internal infrastructure to be able to handle that source code information. And the better that your body is at being able to process that, and then being able to, we could say, create your reality through the information that it's processing, just the more you're going to be able to experience. And this is what it's all about. It's about experience. That's why source, that's why consciousness channels itself through us. It has to separate in order to be able to experience itself. So it wants to experience the good and the bad. That's all the lessons that it needs to learn. And if your body and your mind is capable of being able to handle the harder lessons, then in return the hard lessons bring the fun lessons as well. You get to experience much more, and you just got to be able to make sure that your body is capable of that. Your body can't be capable of that if it's limited in its expression through lack of exercise, shitty diet, overconsumption of pharmaceutical drugs, toxins from the food we eat, the water we drink, the air we breathe, from the sounds that we allow in through our ears, everything. Again, this is another interesting point, is that the people that are running the shit, that are running the world, they know all this. They're connected. They're dialed in. They know exactly what's going down, and they have weaponized this planet. They have control over it, and they have weaponized it to keep us from becoming our fullest potential. Because once we become our fullest potential, just like Neo did when he realized his true potential, he broke out of the Matrix. And if everyone breaks out of the Matrix, then there's no Matrix in place. And their Matrix is there because that's their control system. That's how they sit on top of their pyramid and enjoy the life they live while we do all the work for them. So if everyone wakes up, that's their way of life gone. So they don't want this to happen. They know it's going to happen because they're dialed in. They know the nature. They know the cycles of nature. They know the nature of these cycles. They know that we go for a sleep-wake cycle, and they've been riding or piggybacking off us being in a sleep state for a very long time. And this is the time that they've been fearing, because this is the time when their control structure finally crumbles, and then we rise, and then we ascend together. And it's gonna, we're destined for much greater than what we're currently living.
We are living through really exciting times, Chris.
Yeah, Alex, it's like at the beginning of the film. It's literally, at the beginning of like an epic fantasy film where it shows something that's happened in the near past, like 10,000 years ago, and it shows this comet smashing down into Earth, and this ancient golden age just gets obliterated, and then there's like this last little bit where it's like, don't worry, we will rise again, and then it just shows then like 10,000 years later, and it shows someone waking up on their bed just like, fuck, smashing the alarm clock, getting up, doing their teeth, going to work, hating their job. Oh, I fucking hate this job, 9 to 5, and they feel like they're destined for much more. Well, that character is you. That character is each and every one of you that's listening, and this is the beginning of your own journey. This is the beginning of your own film. Each and every one of us are destined for this spiritual greatness, and there is no other way around this. Like, we are incarnated at this specific time for the specific reason to experience this ascension. Our spirits are ready to experience it. That's why we have incarnated at this time. And just like our ancestors prophesied, they had to keep this information somehow, so they safeguarded it through thousands of years. They kept it secret. They did some bad shit that we probably don't want to admit to, but what was important is that this information was kept safe, and over time they encoded it within their mythologies, within their sacred texts, within their monuments, within everything that they could, to make sure that this information got to us right now. And then for the people with the eyes to see and the ears to hear, they would be the new age initiates that would take this knowledge, and together we will wake this planet up.
I love how you put that. I was going to interject so many times. I was just like, actually, just shut up, like, just let him talk, because you were like on a roll there. That was amazing. But talking about the ones that know, the ones that are enslaving us, the ones that have trapped us, I want to just quickly touch on, going back a little bit, are they to do with the Anunnaki? Like, what can you tell us about the Anunnaki? Because there's a lot of, like, from my research, a lot of negative connotations of the Anunnaki. Were they good? Were they bad? And I've, through my research, kind of come across that we were genetically created and modified by the Anunnaki.
So the idea of the Anunnaki comes from the Sumerian tablets, the cuneiform Sumerian tablets. These were translated by a guy named Zecharia Sitchin. He was the guy that brought all of this to the mainstream. He's got some very interesting books. Do I personally align with them? No. Do I believe everything he said? No. I think that some of the stuff he said was his own interpretation that he kind of ran with, but fuck it, that's what we all do. So he's allowed to do that. It's his opinion. I think there are some common themes that you can cross-reference with other cultures, historical kind of oral traditions, because that's really where the real juice comes from. It's from oral traditions. Everything that was written down it's going to be there's
someone else's perception, isn't it?
Yeah, it's someone else's perception. It's whoever's writing it, it's their perception of the case. So anyway, you've then got Zecharia Sitchin's account, is that he believed that the Anunnaki come from a planet named Nibiru, which is a planet within our solar system that is on its own course, its own sort of cycle throughout our solar system, and at specific points in time, they come back in order to, well, there's many theories and viewpoints on what they come here for. I believe Sitchin's opinion is that Nibiru is a damaged planet, and that they came here to get gold, because gold would help them protect their planet from atmospheric damage.
Yeah.
And so they came here and they created us in the image of themselves as a slave race to mine gold. And through that they got what they came for, and then they've gone back off onto Nibiru, and then it's closely approaching again. Do I believe that? No. I think we've been genetically modified, yes, but I think we've been genetically modified loads of times. I think there's been loads of races, ET races, that have come down over time for hundreds of thousands of years and have fucked with us on all types of levels, both good and bad. And I think there's someone who I do trust, and I do really like his work. His name is Freddie Silver. I've had him on my podcast as well.
Oh my god, I love him. Yeah. I watched his stuff about the Knights of the Templar and the Jesuits.
Exactly.
But we'll come on to that.
So Freddie's very, very switched on with all this, and he knows his stuff. And again, as he talks about the Knights Templar, there's a lot of negative viewpoints on the Knights Templar, but Freddie's isn't. Freddie has a lot of good things to say about him, and he also has a lot of good things to say about the Anunnaki as well. He's got some real interesting things to say about the Anunnaki in regard to, like, they came down at a specific point in time, and they were stationed in the Cook Islands or the Solomon Islands. Supposedly that's where they started, and they did, like, interbreed, or a specific group of the Anunnaki interbred with whatever sort of proto-humans were here at the time, and that created a race of giants, which some refer to as the Nephilim. There's loads of different names for them. And what happened is that these giants got out of control. They were very selfish in nature, and they were very animalistic and cannibalistic in nature, and they were eating up all the humans that were here. And I can't remember the specific details of the Anunnaki in regards to their ranking. There was like Enki, Anu, and there was a specific royal kind of sect of them. And anyway, they came to the decision that they had to stop this, and the only way they knew how to stop this was to essentially wipe these giants out before they wiped everything. And what Freddie says is that they had this technology where essentially they pulled a meteorite from the Taurid meteor stream down into the earth at this specific point, which was the end of Atlantis, the end of all of that ancient civilization, the golden age. And that comet is the Younger Dryas meteorite impact that I was referring to earlier, and it wiped out these race of giants, or it wiped out a high percentage of them. And then that was them kind of rebooting the planet before this giant infestation took over and wiped out humans. That's what Freddie says. I like Freddie's work, and he's the sort of guy where he is very well researched, and he wouldn't say stuff unless he has got significant evidence and a lot of it to be able to make those claims. So have I done the research that Freddie has done on this topic? No. But I know that Freddie has, and if that's what Freddie's saying, then hey, I'm more than happy to go along with that story. Like I think it makes sense. Like when you do research into giants and you do research into those sort of fields of thought, there's very similar opinion across all points of the world, where you would think, well, how can they have a similar point to them? How can someone in the Pacific have the same point to someone?
I've actually done a lot of research into the giants and the Nephilim. Actually, I've never come across any other work apart from Freddie Silver's that has the positive aspect on the Anunnaki and the Jesuits and Knights of Templar and everything that he has. But I know that there's like a lot of proof of the Nephilim and the giants. I've done like research into mountains and rocks and how large the trees were, and some things don't even look like trees, and people say they're trees. And obviously,
do you know a page on Instagram called Sibs on Insta?
No.
Have you not? You need to, for anyone that's listening, it's called Sibs on Insta, which is seeing is believing on Insta, and it's all to do with like mud fossils and
yes, I love all of that.
Yeah,
I do follow a similar page, though. It comes up with like all the giants, bones,
the titans and things like that, and you learn about all the what they call like petrified tree stumps, which is like the mountain ranges that we see today, is supposedly the remnants of the great trees that used to be.
And some of the mountains, like they look like faces that are like lying down, and they were like massive, but they look like faces.
Have you seen Moana? Have you seen Moana?
Yes.
Yeah, you know the bit at the end when it's like the Earth Goddess at the end when she was like the volcano, and then she kind of comes back alive as her Earth Goddess self. It's kind of like that. That's kind of what they were alluding to doing.
I mean, there's a lot of research out there that actually shows that the Earth was a lot larger, as in like things on Earth were larger, like the trees were larger, the insects were larger, the animals were larger. And obviously, like, there's a lot of proof with giants when we go into ancient structures, the steps, how large the steps are. Like, why would they need to be that large if people were our size, you know?
Exactly. I believe so. I definitely believe that giants were here. Supposedly, giants still exist. Supposedly.
I was going to bring this up in Iraq.
Iraq, in a few places. So there was like this U.S. military intelligence report of a group of US military running into two giants in a cave in Afghanistan.
Yeah, I heard this one.
There's been multiple accounts of archaeological discoveries. I believe it's like Loch Love Cave in Nevada or something like that, which they unearthed mummified remains of a giant. There's before the Smithsonian Institute took out all of the alternative ideas that would change our perception on history. There's loads and loads and loads and loads, numerous newspaper articles from the 18th, 19th century in America regarding like discoveries of giant skeletons. Supposedly, in the Solomon Islands today, if you go and talk, this is what Freddie was saying, that he's went and talked to people that live there, to the locals, and they said that the giants still exist, that they live in the jungles on the islands. That there's these
There's many races still living here. Yeah, I've heard.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that there is. I mean, that's another thing to get into in regards to there's so much of the earth that's not been excavated. There's so much of the planet. We're very ignorant and arrogant, thinking that we've surveyed the whole planet just because we've got Google Earth, and then we know exactly where everything is and who's where and what's there. And I think that's complete bullshit. I think there's races living on this planet that both externally and internally that we have no idea are here. It's the same as like fucking, again, predictive programming, like Wakanda in the Marvel films with Black Panther and his King T'Challa and his community there. It's like there could be these advanced civilizations living around us, and they just protect themselves from us with ancient technology that allows them to cloak themselves from our radar systems and from our point of view. So,
have you seen that film Jupiter Ascending? I mean, I'm going off tangent a little bit, but
that one with Channing Tatum and Mila Kunis in. No, I haven't seen that, but I know the one you're referring to.
Oh, okay. You need to watch it. There's so much truth in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're dropping a lot of messages in there.
They do all the time, Alex. They do all the time. Like the people that run Hollywood, Hollywood itself is another rabbit hole to go down, and without going into the more satanic shit about it, like there is a lot of people in Hollywood that don't necessarily know what's up, but they're being fed information, compartmentalized information of what's up, and that's why you see little sort of like Easter eggs and clues in all these sort of mainstream sort of epic blockbuster films that allude to our ancient past and the nature of reality, but it's covered and shrouded in the fact that it's a film, and it's and that's what it is.
And people believe that it's just make believe. They
believe just because it's a fictional film, so they just believe that it's just a fictional account of things. But in reality, there's a lot of shit that they show that it's real, like, or it has its essence, a lot of truth to it.
Yeah, I want to quickly go back and like touch on root races, actually, because I know that you mentioned about the different races when we were talking about the Annunaki and where they come from, and I just want to touch on like what the difference is, the difference between root race and bloodlines.
Yeah,
are they the same thing?
I mean, they can be, but at the same time, they're not. So root races was a term coined by Madame Helena Blavatsky. I was saying this briefly to you before we started recording, and this is all to do with... so Blavatsky created a kind of I don't know what you would call it, it's not really a philosophy. It's almost like an occult religion, almost, called Theosophy. And some of it was channeled, some of it was through her own sort of research. And she said that there are 7 root races that will inhabit this planet before the human species, the human story is done on this planet. And each root race takes a specific point of time on this planet, and they all have different characteristics and different sort of a different spiritual... what's the word I'm looking for? They have a different spiritual interaction with the planet and reality. So we are according to Blavatsky, we are currently on the 5th root race, which is the Aryan root race. The 4th root race was the Atlantean root race. The 3rd root race, I believe, was the Lumerian. And then there was a Hyperborean root race, and then I can't remember the others. But from my readings, what it seems to be is that the 7 root races, it goes from etheric, non-material, and it begins to materialize, and then it begins to dematerialize back into spirit. So all these races look very different to us then. So the Aryan race, again, there's a reason why Nazi Germany was very obsessed with the Aryan race. Germany were very dialed in regards to occult knowledge and ancient wisdom. Like Hitler spent a lot of money and national funds researching this. He had teams, and he had putting that aside, so the Aryan race is like blonde hair, blue eyes, white skin. The Atlantean root race, from, if I'm just pulling this out of the top of my head, I may be wrong, it's been a while since I visited this topic, was like red-skinned, almost like Red Indians or Native Americans. You don't know if that's a political correct way of saying it, but the Lumerians were kind of like Asian, like yellow-skinned. The Hyperboreans were almost like etheric, where they were like translucent, transparent. And then the sixth root race, which we are moving into, I forgot what the time periods are on this exactly, but what Blavatsky said is that the sixth root race is going to originate in California, and that California, through the San Andreas fault line, is going to break off, and it's going to drift into the Pacific, and on that island is going to be the beginning of the new sixth root race on the planet.
So is this why we have like different cultures and different origins on the earth here? Like obviously you have, you have like African...
kind of. This is much the root races though. The root race thing, it's like there aren't Atlantean root races here now. Like everyone on this planet is essentially a area of the Aryan root race, because it's kind of like the age that we're in. It's not so much that you still got Atlanteans here, you've got Lumerians here and Hyperboreans. Like it's kind of
but why do they call it the Aryan race when obviously not everyone on this planet is what we would typically know as Aryan?
That I don't know, but it's also in regards to the root race, it's the philosophy, it's the spiritual connection, it's the level of consciousness, it's everything tied in. And yes, you get this sort of generic kind of like physical representation of the Aryan root race, but you also need to think of it in regards to the like just the general.
So it's more spiritual, the root races, as opposed to like physical aspects.
It's everything. Like it's a race. Think of it as like human 1.0, human 2.0, human 3.0, and you can get different modifications of each of those human race roots, but it's still the same root, if that makes sense. You're still rooted to that same overarching archetype of Lumerian, Atlantean.
Does this then tie into bloodlines?
So the bloodlines, again, in my opinion, I would perceive, if someone said what is a bloodline, I would perceive that to be a direct sort of ancestral lineage through mitochondrial DNA, which is passed down through the mother. So you would trace your DNA back through however many years, how whatever time period you want to, through that specific way of tracing back your ancestral lineage. And I would class that as a bloodline. I wouldn't say that the bloodline and the root races are the same. That's my opinion. I don't know, other people might have another idea, another explanation for it, but that's how I would explain that.
I haven't done enough research in well, especially in root races as well. That's something that I've only recently come to over the past year or so. I want to just quickly touch on, because I'm just bearing in mind of the time, but I mean, with you being a Freemason, I want to come back to this, and I have like so many questions to ask about this. I just want you to quickly explain, like, for those that aren't aware of what occult knowledge or esoteric knowledge is, how do you explain what that is?
I mean, occult knowledge simply means hidden knowledge.
Okay.
That's essentially what it means. But what is occult and esoteric knowledge? It is, in my opinion, it is the remnants of the high spiritual sciences of Atlantis, of Lumeria, and these ancient Golden Age civilizations. This knowledge, though, is not easy to understand. It's hard to interpret. It's hard to intellectualize, because that's not the way that it's meant to be interpreted. If you try to intellectualize things, you're using your left hemisphere of your brain, and you're trying to look at it, you're trying to analyze it, you're trying to critique it, you're trying to logically understand it, and that's not the way it's meant to be understood. It's meant to be felt. It's meant to be known. It's a difference between like
learning.
The difference, learning through the left hemisphere and the right hemisphere, and all this occult wisdom is normally passed down through symbolism. It's passed down.
So it's meant to basically just come from within and have that instinctual knowing.
Yeah.
Sparked. Like, so you'll be reading something and it will spark an internal knowing, as opposed to learning. Okay.
Yeah, and this esoteric knowledge has been safeguarded through secret societies, mystery schools, certain groups of individuals throughout history, in order to protect it from, well, they did a shitty job of protecting it, to be honest with you, because it got into the wrong hands, and that's the reason why we're in the situation we're in now with everyone. Because
so this information was good in the beginning?
Yeah, well, the information is neither good or bad. It's the people that use it, that sway it in the direction.
Behind it, yeah,
it's the intention behind it. Like, it's the same with everything. There is the good and bad is really the perception of whoever's is a subjective opinion. Whereas the actual knowledge itself is objective in nature. It can be used for any means, but it's a spiritual science. It's to understand how to immortalize the soul, to be able to connect back to source and escape the matrix, or escape this illusion, and then become the medium of the two worlds, become the medium of the heavens and the earth below, and to be able to interact with the God realm and the human realm. And this knowledge was, back in the ancient world, was kept within specific priesthoods, within temple complexes around the world that would initiate worthy initiates into the mysteries. That's what they called it back then. So you had the Osiris or the Hathor, Isis mystery schools in ancient Egypt. In Greece, you had the Eleusinian, Pythagorean mystery schools. In the Vedic valleys, you had the Brahmins, the Brahmayans. They had their own mystery schools over in Tibet. They had theirs. They had them over in Mesoamerica and South America. They had them there. And here in the UK, we had the Avalonian mystery schools in Glastonbury, which was like the Druidic mystery teachings.
But all the information essentially comes from the same source, right? Like it's
so all
the same foundation.
Yeah, it's essentially the same foundation, but all these mystery schools had specific roles and specific topics that they covered.
Yeah.
And the initiate would travel around the ancient world and be initiated into these mystery schools to learn about themselves, to learn about the human constitution, the temple of God, which is the human body, and they would learn how to ascend. And they would, that over time, as these mystery schools began to get shut down, and as other civilizations began to rise, and then these monotheistic religions began to take control, these mystery schools had to go underground, and then they become secret societies. That's where they kind of originated from. And then this wisdom, this knowledge began to resurface in back in like the 13th, 12th to 16th century, when you started to see the development of these Gothic cathedrals and all of this sacred geometry and the architecture of these places. And this knowledge was then just passed through numerous secret societies to keep it safe.
But I really want to touch on like how Freemasonry is seen as it's seen quite negatively. It's perceived to be quite negative. And it has a lot of associations with other secret societies, such as the Skull and Bones, which we know George W. Bush was part of, and other people that I probably actually just shouldn't mention. But why is Freemasonry seen as negative, but you're kind of happy to be part of it and speak openly about it?
Well, okay, I'll go off on this question. You can just taper me in if you need me to. So, first and foremost, like, Freemasonry is not evil. It's just the people that are in Freemasonry, a group within Freemasonry, are evil.
Okay.
Just like how humanity is not evil, but if you were looking at it from a completely objective perspective, looking down on the earth, you'd think humanity is evil because they're just constantly at war, constantly conflicting. Yeah, but we're not. It's a 1% that are controlling shit that makes it evil. And it's the same with Freemasonry. Like, Freemasonry go back to those Gothic cathedrals and the knowledge that was encoded within them. That was to keep that knowledge safe. And then the first official Masonic lodge was opened, or the United Grand Lodge of England, which can be found in London, that opened in 1717. So you've got 1717 there, but they were building these cathedrals way back in the 12th to 16th century, and that was the Masons that were building that. So the official Freemason, or the first official Freemason lodge, was 1717. Everything was probably good. They probably had righteous morals intentions back then. And then we get to a certain time period in 1776, which is when we know that a professor, the teacher, professor over in Germany, Bavaria, named Adam Weishaupt, he created something called the Bavarian Illuminati. And it was his intention to basically create a system to infiltrate and undermine the integrity of religions, of government, of places of power, to be able to usher in a new world order. And there's an interesting letter in which was written in 1798 by George Washington to a gentleman named William Wallace, and they're discussing the topic of conspiracy, and they were discussing that they had known that a lot of the Masonic lodges in Europe had been infiltrated and corrupted. And on the letter, George Washington states, he's like, as far as I'm aware, there is no infiltration or corruption yet in stateside Masonry, in American Masonry.
Why does he say because he was part of the infiltration?
No, I don't think he was. He was like, there's a reason why, like, the first 14 presidents were openly Freemasons, initiated into Freemasonry, and there's a reason why Washington D.C. is built the way it is, and everything. Like, it was. But
why is it based on members and secret societies? Why can't everyone have this knowledge?
Because this knowledge is dangerous. Like, there's not, or it can be dangerous. Like, this knowledge is powerful. This knowledge gives you the power to create your own reality. And if you've got the knowledge to create your own reality and someone else hasn't, you can create their reality for them without them knowing, and they live within your reality, which is what we're all living in. We're living in the elite's reality, as is pretty evident to those that have got eyes to see it.
Yeah.
So this knowledge isn't just given out to anyone. Like, to be able to use this knowledge appropriately. This is why the ancient mystery schools had strict regulations in who they let in. You had to be a worthy initiate. You had to have a strict moral compass, and that be heart-centered and have integrity and honor.
So it has been infiltrated by the dark, obviously.
Yeah. It definitely has been infiltrated by the dark, and over time,
many breakaway groups has come off of it.
Yeah, so the Freemasonry breaks off. Once you do your blue-collar lodge degrees, you break off into, there's something called the Yorkshire Rite, which is the UK-based sort of career path of a Mason. And then you have the Scottish Rite Freemasonry in America, which goes up to the 33rd degree. And that's where this whole idea of the 33rd degree and the Illuminati come from. And you get into the likes of Albert Pike and some other infamous and famous Freemasons over the ages that have played their part within the infiltration of government, of every sort of position of power in the planet. And that's what these people have done. Like, yes, they are Freemasons, but Freemasonry is not evil. They're just evil people that have hijacked Freemasonry and use it to control. Because then within this little group, within the upper echelons of Freemasonry, which is a specific little club, specific lodges throughout the world where they keep the power structure compartmentalized. So you only know what you need to know, and you only know if you're in that specific club. That they have individuals that are in specific positions of power throughout the world of control. So obviously they want to control the world through our five senses. So you're going to have people in positions of power through what we can eat or taste, what we can see, what we can hear, what we can smell. So people that control these senses, when you really trace the kind of the levels of the pyramid up to the top, the people in that club up there are going to be people that are in control of those specific ways of controlling how we perceive reality. And if you can do that, and you can control all 5 of our senses, then you control our perception of reality. And if you control what we perceive to be reality, you can limit our perception of reality, and you can limit our potential. And that is exactly what they've done through this systematic infiltration over the past few hundred years. And they're in this for a long game. This isn't something that they do that there was going to be like, okay, we got like a 10-year plan. This shit's like written down to take decades, to take centuries. Like, they're all in the same club, of the same bloodlines, of the same families, and they keep the power consistent throughout, and they keep the plan going. And this is the end game now, where we're currently at.
But the Freemasons that are obviously coming from more of a light intention, are they aware that they've been infiltrated? Are they aware of are they all aware of what's going on, is what I'm trying to say?
No, 99% of the Freemasons don't have a fucking clue what's going on. They don't know anything. They don't even know what Freemasonry is. 99% of Freemasons are in there because it's good for networking, for business opportunities, to meet new people, to socialize, get away from the wife and kids so that you can hang out with the boys and have a nice meal and do some ritual that you have no fucking idea what it means, but you do it because that's what everyone else does. And then they don't know. Like, 99% of people in Freemasonry have no idea what it is, what it means. Like, when I was there, I'm not in it anymore. I think it's pointless. I think there's no need for it now. You can find all the information that you need about Freemasonry on the internet if you know where to look. And when I'm there, it's the same thing. You're asking, so, oh, what does this mean? What does that mean? What does that symbol mean? And they're like, oh, don't worry, you'll find out one day, or like you'll find out as you progress. And then what you very quickly learn is that they don't have a fucking clue what they're on about. No one knows what they're on about. The only people that know is the people at that top position, but the people down below, it's, as you said, it's compartmentalized. They drip feed little bits of knowledge, which means absolutely nothing when you can't contextualize it with the rest of the knowledge.
And that's how they hold the power at the top, because they're not giving the full picture away.
And they only allow the people in the top to go up there if you're going to be of value to them, or if they see themselves in you. So if you've got some guy who's like, I don't know, he's at Cambridge or Oxford University or Yale, where the Skull and Bones is, and you know they're of a specific bloodline, you know that they're gonna follow in their father's footsteps, their granddad's footsteps, and they have the same traits, which is non-empathic, pretty heartless, a sadistic piece of shit, then they're going to be like, yeah, he fits the bill, let's initiate him. So instead of doing someone who's took a Masonic career of 30, 40 years to work their way up to not even get to the top, they just do one initiation one night where they're like, right, bang, initiating the Freemasonry all the way up to the 33rd degree, bam, you got all the knowledge, there you go. Join us in our satanic practices, and now we're going to sacrifice some kids, drink some adrenochrome, and then we're going to run the world. That's exactly how it goes down.
It's so sick. I want to just quickly touch on Manly Pugh Hall, because I know that he was quite obviously part of the Freemasons. He speaks about it. He shares a lot of knowledge about the occult and the esoteric knowledge. Mm-hmm. What is your opinion on him? Because I've heard mixed opinions that, he only tells half the truth. He tells like 80% and leaves 20% out. So he's not giving us the full picture. But I mean, wasn't that the reason for him leaving and coming out in the first place?
I think Manly Pugh Hall is one of the most important figures within 19th, 20th century thought. Like, in regards to being a Masonic philosopher, there's no one else out there that did what he done. He created what he calls the secret teachings of all ages, which is like the ultimate compendium of this esoteric occult literature and wisdom. And he threw it out there. It's like, regardless if he put 80% truth, 80% fact, or 20% whatever, like, most people don't even understand it anyway, because they're not at the level of awareness and consciousness to be able to understand what he gives out anyway.
Yeah.
He dedicated his life to this pursuit of wisdom and knowledge, and I've got nothing bad to say about him. He's one of my own personal idols. Like, I look up to him and I look up to his work, and like,
I personally love his work.
Yeah, if anyone could understand even a small percentile of what he knew, they would be what we refer to as now as woke as fuck. Like, he was on some next level, and he you got to remember that again, it's like everyone has their flaws. Everyone is human, and I can't speak for his actions outside of his research. From what I am aware of, he was a very a misunderstood gentleman. He was quite he liked being well. He was, what's the way best describe manly? He's for anyone who wants to know more about Manly and get like a good understanding of him, watch a guy named Mitch Horowitz do his presentation on him at the Philosophical Research Society, which is Manly P. Hall's place over in LA. Like, he's got his own sort of library over there, which is still a charity that runs to this very day. And
so anyone can go in there and
you can go in there and you can look around. You can look at all the collections of books and artifacts and everything like that Manly collected and brought together over his lifetime. But I haven't got a bad word to say about Manly in regards to what his work was saying.
And just another thing on this subject actually is symbolism. Symbolism seems to be quite a big thing that they use, the elites I'm referring to, but it does stem from the mystery schools, the ancient civilizations. I mean, the symbolism goes way back. What is the connection? Why do they use this?
So symbolism is one of those things that speaks to the higher self. It speaks to the subconscious mind, and it's the subconscious mind that really controls us when you start to look at some basic psychology. And just the same with like hieroglyphics, the same with like when you start looking into sacred geometry. But just modern day example, like you could send a text saying "I love you" to someone, or you could send them a heart emoji, and the heart emoji you can get a lot more meaning out of than just "I love you." Like humans interact with symbols and understand symbols a lot more. There's a lot more information that can be encoded within a symbol than just a word or a phrase, which can be misinterpreted. That's why if you're driving down the motorway, everything's in symbols because it's quick and easy to understand. And it's the same thing with these ancient mystery traditions that the transmission of knowledge was passed down through symbols, but obviously you had to be taught what the symbols meant to be able to really understand them.
Is this why in hieroglyphics that they used that way to communicate?
Just because the symbols read so much more. It's like they used to read through their right brain. So when they're looking at the hieroglyphics, they're not just looking at like a man holding a papyrus roll or a man with an ibis head. Imagine having that internalized within you so that you could look at hieroglyphics and it would just project almost like a holographic explanation of what you're reading. That's the way that I perceive that they had the ability to be able to read these things. And it's the same when like these symbolisms are passed down. So you can't see it now because I've got this hoodie on, but I've got like the Masonic square and compass on there, and you'll see an eye on my arm. I've got a lot of like symbolic emblems tattooed on me. I'm very interested in symbolism and understanding how to read it and understanding the powers that they hold, different sigils, different symbols from all across the ancient world, and they all have significant spiritual meanings behind it, but you just need to learn how to read it. Like you would learn to read any language, symbolism is another language that can be read.
Yeah. Do people get quite wary of you when they see your symbolism on your arms and stuff?
No, they don't know what the fuck it means anyway. No one gives a shit, man. No one cares, Alex. That's what I mean. Like, there's a few people within the conscious community, and then like even the mass majority of them think that Freemasonry is evil, which straight away shows me that they don't know what they're talking about. And then most of the people don't even know what it is. They look at the tattoo and they're like, "Oh, that's nice, man." They're like, no one gives a shit nowadays, Alex. No one cares, and it's that's why it's nice to be able to connect with someone like yourself that you can have this conversation with, and you're interested in, and I'm interested in what you have to say, and vice versa. And it's nice to be able to exchange ideas. And some things I'm sure we agree on, some things we might not. But the point is that there is
we're both open.
Yeah, we're both open.
I think that's so important, is that like limiting your beliefs is limiting your reality, basically.
Yeah, for sure. And I would say for people that are interested, go out and just look at buildings around you or wherever you live that are of 100 years plus of age, and you'll be able to see symbolism everywhere. It's different in today's architecture. They don't really make the effort to build temples anymore. That's why, again, this is a topic massively, a bit of a massive tangent. That's why there's loads of crop circles around now. Crop circles are like 21st century temples, in that we've stopped building temples of God anymore. Like we don't build that. We just build box houses and towers, skyscrapers. We don't build the temples like we used to, so there aren't any sacred places left anymore. So you go look at these old places and see the symbolism within them, and you'll be able to learn to see the consistent themes that are used throughout all of them. And that's from ancient Egypt, that's over in, if you're looking at the Steeped Pyramids over in Mesoamerica, that's if you're looking at the ziggurats over in Iraq, if you're looking at any of the temples over in China and the Orient, all of these temples had a specific architectural theme that was followed, and that's for a specific reason. It's just to keep this knowledge passed down throughout the ages.
And based on all this knowledge that we're currently talking about, they were very, very spiritually evolved and spiritually aware. What can you tell us about how to transcend duality?
So again, this is something that like the whole Primal Alchemy brand is based upon, which is you need to optimize yourself. Like this is all about you. This is one of my sayings that I say, and it's probably going to be like oversaid and overheard very soon. But just save yourself, save the world. If as long as you work on yourself, that's all you can do. You need to make sure that your body, your physical body, is in peak condition. You didn't see that the pyramids or these Gothic cathedrals were built with hay and straw. They are built with the correct materials, and you are the real temple of God. You are the blueprint in which all these temples were built after. So you need to build your temple of God accordingly with the right materials and the right equipment. So you need to focus on exercise, you need to focus on nutrition, you need to focus on lifestyle factors. You need to be able to make sure that your body is physically optimized. If your body is physically optimized, then as above, so below, your mind will be physically optimized, because your mind and the body is essentially the same thing. And then once you've created that temple of God that is fit for God, that is fit for the God self to express itself through, you have built that internal infrastructure, as I said earlier, for your spirit, or for you to be able to hold greater life force energy. The greater life force energy you have, you start to increase your ability to be able to operate on a higher spiritual level and increase your level of consciousness and awareness. So for me, it always comes down to the level of you. This is about bringing power back to yourself. So again, this is something that I could talk for loads and loads of podcasts about, but for people that want a good introduction into this, if you go onto primalalchemy.co.uk and you go on the shop section under the art section there, I've released something called the Superhuman Optimization Map. It's a free PDF download, or if you want, you can help support me and you can grab a premium A4 cutout of it. Just let me see if I actually have one up here. So this is it here. So basically what it is, it's broken down into physical optimization keys, mental optimization keys, emotional optimization keys, spiritual optimization keys. There's a lot of what you would refer to as like simulation-based physics that you can research here. There's self-development, ego development theories and models that you can research here. Here you've got nutritional keys to look into, and here you've got what I call the kryptonite, which are things to stay away from in the both physical and non-physical. And all of the topics there are for you to go and research independently. And if you begin to just integrate and implement less than 5% of what's on here into your life, if you're not doing it already, you will completely shift your perspective of reality. You will completely level up your avatar vessel, and you will begin to become much more able to do what every great initiate of throughout history has done, which is complete the great work, the magnum opus, which is to know thyself. It's to master yourself, and if you master yourself, as above, so below, you master the universe. And then once you do that, you become Neo, and then you can pretty much do what the fuck you want, and the Illuminati can't do shit to you, because you're just operating at a level which they cannot control, because your frequency, your vibration is too high for them to fuck with, or to be bothered to be fucked with, because they'd rather just control the sheep that are operating on a much more lower level of vibration.
Chris, this has been absolutely amazing. I'm just like really wary of the time, right? But I have like half my questions that I haven't even got through with you. So I'm probably going to have to get you back on again.
Cool. Yeah, that's cool. I've enjoyed it, Alex.
Sorry?
I've enjoyed it. I can do 10 more minutes.
Yeah, okay. So I just wanted to quickly, if we've got time, so my last two questions basically, just for people that don't understand what it means to transcend duality, because this is something that I talk about a lot, obviously being in Ascending Tribe and going through the ascension process. To do that, you have to kind of go that way and transcend duality, because we are in a dualistic universe. But can you give us more of a in-depth explanation what it means to transcend duality?
My personal opinion on this is, in order to transcend duality, is you're not going to know about it, because in order to know yourself, you have to have something else to gauge your perception of self off from. So if you transcend duality and you go back to source, then you've got no identification of yourself. So that is kind of like the end goal.
Does that mean transcending ego?
Yeah, I mean, transcendent ego, but again, ego isn't necessarily a bad thing. That's another misconception within this community.
Yes, I hear it as well. And that's the next subject of my Zoom chat actually this week.
What about ego being good or bad?
So it's called Ego, What Is It For? Because again, I find it all the time, there's a massive misconception, especially in the spiritual community as well, that say, oh, you need to live from the spirit and let go of the ego, detach from the ego, and once you do that, everything's good. And it's like, how can you detach from the ego? Because that is what makes you human. This is what is allowing you to have your individualistic human experience, is the ego.
Yeah.
So again, so that is the topic.
That's all hippie woo-woo bullshit. All the people that say that are the people that have got issues with their own ego and are trying to escape shit that they haven't dealt with on their own personal level. You have to deal with your ego is you. The ego is what drives you to do righteous things, to help other people. If you had no ego, then you're not going to fucking exist. It's stupid. When people say that, it's just a good sign of like, all right, I'm going to stay away from them because they're obviously a fucking idiot and don't know what they're on about. And they just read too much Instagram memes. The whole thing of escaping duality is not, unless you're going to take a blast on the pipe of DMT, or you're going to go do some form of real strong entheogen, then you're not going to be, it's going to take you a lifetime of inner work to be able to overcome, or I should say to surpass duality. Because if you're going to experience the third dimension, you're going to experience duality, because that's just how spirit, for spirit to manifest into matter, it has to enter the world of duality. The dark and the light, it's just that. So what I would say is that you could gain the ability to perceive that state of no mind, samadhi, whatever it is that you want to refer it to. You can gain that ability, but we're here to enjoy the third dimension. We're here to ascend, yes, but it's hard to explain the how to get to that. No, it's hard. I mean, for me, like
just correct me if I'm wrong, or like build off of this, but like for me, when I think about transcending duality, to me that means in the third dimensional world, it means just being aware of the illusion and just acknowledging. I suppose in your concept you would say being aware of the simulation.
Okay, let's just say it's being aware of being aware of the other half and not being unconscious to it. It can be as simple as that. I mean,
I have moments of clarity myself when I just feel myself looking above, like looking down. I'm above and looking down, but it doesn't last. You know what I mean? Because I'm in the third dimension and I am like, I have my ego and I have a spirit at the same time. But yeah, so it's just, I have moments of clarity there.
Yeah, well, you can work to have those moments of clarity become a lifetime of clarity. Let's put it that way.
Yes.
Where you know yourself, you still identify as yourself, but you're just aware of much more. It's the same as like if someone's down on the ground floor of the Empire State Building in the hustle and bustle of Manhattan, and then you've got someone at the top of the Empire State Building, right on the top of the tower, and they can they're aware of so much more. It's like they're not distracted by their illusionary perception of reality because they're down at ground level. If you're up here, you can just perceive so much more. So what you want to do is work your way up in life, up each floor, to the point where you are aware. You could still see what's going on down below, but you also have the view of what's on the horizon and the sky above, and you've got a much more better position to be able to to make decent decisions in life of what's going to be better for you and what's not. Like someone down below isn't going to be able to see what's on the horizon, so they're just living in that current circumstance, where someone up above could be like, well, you know, I can see an invading tribe coming my way, so I'm going to get the fuck out of here. And they've just saved themselves because their level of awareness was much greater than the person ground below.
Yeah, I love that. I love that concept, because there's a lot of people in the spiritual community that say, oh, I don't want to be aware of the dark, or I don't focus on the dark, and that's fine. Like I completely, that's your decision, that's fair enough. It's just me, I just feel like I like to observe the dark, because I like
have to observe the dark.
Yeah, well, I mean,
darkness,
I don't want to say that I don't want to say that they have to. Like, that's just me. I just
that they have to. Otherwise, they're always going to be completely ignorant to the dark, and you can't just walk around thinking that the world is fucking sunshine and rainbows and peaches and cream, because it's not. And these people, like it's funny. I was listening back to a podcast the other day from a woman named Andrea Lowe, which is a real good person for you to have on, Alex. And she said something that was really funny. She was like, "You can't namaste away all of the bullshit here on this planet. You can't namaste away the vaccines. You can't namaste away the fucking Federal Reserve. You can't namaste away that shit. You got to be able to interact with the darkness, and you got to find comfort within the darkness. If you interact with the darkness, you find comfort within it, you can illuminate the darkness, and it expands your own level of awareness. If you don't even interact with it, you're fucking like closed off. You're more closed off than the people that are stuck in the darkness and can't see the light. But you're just the reverse of that. You're on the other end of that polarity, and you're living in an illusion. So again, I got a big bone to pick with a lot of the spiritual, conscious, awakened community, as they like to refer to themselves as. And generally speaking, Alex, I might be talking out of line here, and this might offend people, but fuck it, this is the truth. Most of those people that have those viewpoints are people that have come through to their spiritual beliefs through some form of traumatic event in their life. There's two ways of coming through a spiritual illumination, that is through trauma or through self-inquisition and self-inquiry. And most of the people that have come through the trauma side of things, they don't want to delve back into the darkness, because the darkness is what really got them there in the first place, and they think they're above it. Well, you're not above it. You have to be one with the darkness to be one with the light. And that is why there is a yin to the yang. There is light and dark. There's not just light. And if you try and act like that, you only get half of the fucking yin yang. And the more that people pull themselves away from that and think, and they don't want to operate in it, then they're stopping and halting their own spiritual progression.
I love your perspective on things, Chris, honestly. For me, this perspective does work for me. And when my awakening started, I actually found the dark and the light at the same time. And my journey was like simultaneously. So it was like oscillating between, you know, like I'm researching into the dark stuff, which what I would call like truth seeking, like all the stuff that's currently going on that we possibly haven't spoken about just yet. But then at the same time, I'm like oscillating between the light and the spiritual side. I'm exploring myself and I'm going within. And for me, that worked. And that's just that. I mean, that for me is just my journey. That's my experience, and that's how I found it. My awakening.
And that's the way, in my opinion, that's the path that you want to be able to take, Alex. That's the one that's going to show you the truth. You can't, like, there's truth in everything. There's truth in the darkness and truth in the light, and you need to be able to operate in both worlds. That's what we're here for, right? To experience duality.
Yeah.
You need to be able to operate it to the point where you hit that interference, that edge of where the light and the dark unite. And
as you touched on yin and yang, like, this is about balance. Everything in this reality is about balance, finding the balance in everything.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you, Alex. And if that's the path that you found yourself like being pulled towards in this, that's what you got to do. Explore the dark shit. It's necessary. It's actually an essential to understand the dark shit, because the world is a lot darker than people want to believe, and they put their heads in the sand. They bury their heads in the sand as deep as they can go and pretend, like I said, that it's all fucking peaches and cream, but it's not. And people need to understand what's going on. They need to understand the evil that is operating in this planet, because this is our time. We are the saviors we've been waiting for. We are the heroes that we watch in the films, and we are what our ancestors prophesized about. And there is an evil afoot, and it's time for us to unite and take that shit out once and for all, so that we can fit our destiny together.
I agree. And the only thing that I'm just going to lastly say about like the dark side is I went through a phase of like really attaching to the fear and the anger and the depression, all the negative stuff that comes with the dark. And for me, what I learned is that, like, for me, that doesn't work. Vibrating at that vibration doesn't work. I now come from a place of observation, and I use the dark as a tool to push me more into the light. And I think this is what people need to start finding with the dark. It's not attaching to it so much, because I see it a lot in the truth community. There's a lot of division, there's a lot of conflict, there's a lot of anger, there's a lot of hate. You know, oh, my way is the right way, or no, oh, you have to believe in this because they're doing this, and blah blah blah. And it's like, but you don't need to vibrate from that frequency. Like, observe it. This is happening. You
don't have to identify with it.
To your advantage for your spiritual growth. And that's been my experience, basically.
But yeah, coming at Alex, you're more woke than you're letting on.
Thank you so much for coming on. So it was so good. I actually really want to get you on again and actually delve into a few more different questions. But I feel like actually we could speak for another 5 hours, if I'm honest with you. Why don't you end with letting us know what your future plans are for you, for Primal Alchemy? How can we stay in contact with you? How can people follow you and stay in contact and up to date with everything?
For sure, guys. So everyone that's been interested in what I've had to say and can tolerate my my bluntness with these topics, check out my Instagram, which is Primal Alchemy UK. That's where most of my activity is done on. My website, primalalchemy.co.uk. There you can check out our range of products. So I've got my own supplement range that I've create. I source all the ingredients myself. In my opinion, they're the best superfood supplements on the planet. I have a special piece of machinery called an orgone generator, which I infuse all of the products with prana or life force energy. I've got the clothing. I've got what I would call like initiatory art, which can be used for like meditation and sort of guide maps to ascension. I do my own what I call like an ancestral kitchen meat box service, which is like an organic meat box, UK only though, guys, on that. And I got my own podcast, which is the Red Pill Initiation Hour. So check any of that shit out. If you like it, great. If you don't, maybe you come back to it at another stage. But the main thing is here, guys, it's you gotta find whatever you resonate with that allows you to work on yourself. If you don't resonate with me, whatever, find someone else who you can resonate with, and just keep working on yourself. And yeah, the truth will set you free on this one.
Definitely. Thank you so much for your time.